morning and welcome to the Innovative Learning Summer Summit, a conference for Virginia Beach educators by Virginia Beach educators. I'm Rose Beeson, the Instructional Technology Specialist at the Tech Center, and this is Jennifer Clements, an Instructional Technology Coordinator for the Department of Teaching and Learning. We are so excited you guys could join us here today. So as we work together to break down barriers to student engagement and build connections to future-ready skills. Today, our mission is to innovate, integrate, and inspire you to try new things this year. In the goodie bag you received upon arrival, you'll find the business card with our conference website address. From the website, you'll find a link to SCED, as well as all of our conference information and a link to our exit ticket. We're proud to offer some new types of professional learning experiences today. Today we will start with the keynote session, followed by 2 choice sessions at 9:15 and at 10:15. Then there will be a 45-minute break for lunch, and for those of you who pre-ordered Jason's Deli, you'll be able to pick up your lunch in the cafeteria. Next, we hope you'll engage in our Browse and Build sessions located in the Commons and the library, where you'll find our Makerspace and STEM innovation stations, as well as our poster sessions. At 1 and 2 this afternoon, you'll be able to attend our 2 other choice sessions. Afterwards, we'll stream a brief closing session into the classrooms hosting the final sessions of the day. We'd like to highlight a few particularly special opportunities. During each time slot today, you can join Dr. John Spencer in room E301 for one of his 3 sessions. Dr. Spencer is an international speaker who focuses on the power of creativity and wonder in education. He's really awesome. In addition, at 9:15 and 1 p.m. today, you can participate in roundtable discussions in the Commons to meet informally with others who are interested in innovations topics. Details on all of these opportunities can be found in SCED. Most of our choice sessions today are available in person and live streamed, though the roundtable discussions and the Browse and Build sessions are for in-person attendees only. Virtual links are in SCED. All choice sessions will be recorded, and those links will be uploaded to SCED when they become available. If you're physically here at Tallwood but would rather attend virtually, please feel free to use the auditorium or find a quiet space in the building to join us.
Throughout the day, a photo and video station will be open near the library entrance. Take some pictures with a call out and post them on Twitter with the hashtag VBCPS, or volunteer to record a short video clip to highlight something new or exciting that you learned today. This video recording opportunity will be available at 1 p.m. Your video clip may be featured in the closing session, and all who record video clips will earn exciting swag. Speaking of swag, we have so many different swag prizes to offer you today. You all received a Pinboys bowling voucher in your goodie bag, so you can look for that in your bag. Who doesn't love 2 hours of unlimited bowling, am I right? and we have tons of other prizes to award today as well. Please take a look at all of the businesses and organizations who have sponsored this conference and who have provided prizes. How can you win these fantastic gifts, you're wondering? Flip to the back of your conference business card. You have the website on the one side. If you have a colored sticker on the back, you may be a prize winner. In fact, if you have a blue sticker, you won an opening session prize. Congratulations, opening session winners. Opening session prizes include a Canva classroom book and gift cards to SalidWorks, crumble cookie, and the Virginia Beach Adventure Park. Blue sticker folks. After discussion, please visit our Innovation Prize Station, which is down that way at the hallway intersection, to pick up your door prize. We'd like to offer special thanks to our top donors, Pinboys at the Beach and Visby. You'll want to stay at the conference throughout the closing session today for the chance to win gift certificates and other amazing prizes. Please listen for overhead PA announcements throughout the day to determine if you've won. It's really important that you complete the exit ticket by 5 p.m. today so that we can give you professional learning credit in Frontline. You only need to complete the exit ticket once after your last session. Attendees who participate in sessions throughout the whole day will earn 6 Frontline points when they complete the exit ticket. Presenters and ITSs, please also complete that exit ticket to get your Frontline points. You can access the exit ticket from our conference website, which is provided on your business card. And then one more. Please help me to thank everybody who has made this day possible. The Conference Advisory Committee would like to thank Tallwood High School for hosting this event today, as well as all of our terrific presenters, volunteers, moderators, sponsors. Thank you. And Rose and I would like to thank the conference committee members for all of their hard work in putting together this experience. Thank you. Please enjoy your day today and see a conference committee member in a blue t-shirt if you have any questions at all. And now we'll turn it over to Dr. Shoebridge, the Director of Instructional Technology, who will introduce our keynote speakers. Thank you.
Good morning! I know it's summer and you're like, I'm not really in the mood right now, but good morning! Oh, I love it so much better. Before they step off the stage, can you please join me in a round of applause for Jennifer and Rose? Really, they have done an amazing job. If for nothing else, if you are a Blue Dot winner, that's quite an amazing swag bag of prizes that you're walking away with. I did want to just, a couple of quick shout outs. In case you missed it, John Spencer is here. We are very excited. We have a partnership with John Spencer going on 2 years. He wrote books like Launch, Empower at a Distance, really working with the ITSs. I'm really pushing for our name change to become Instructional Innovation Specialists. Dr. Rogers, Instructional Innovation Specialists, trying to move out of all of our teachers and our staff thinking that it's about the device and the tool. Really, it's about the innovation and how can we invite and encourage all of you to innovate. So leads me right to our guest speaker. You didn't come for me. I did want to share, this is an open invitation for innovation. And yes, I'm getting old and I need the glasses. Allison Zmuda is here with us this morning. She is a long-standing education consultant focused on curriculum development with an emphasis on personalized learning. Allison began as a public high school teacher in Newtown, Connecticut, where her passion for students and innovative spirit inspired the writing of her first book, The Competent Classroom, in 2001. She made the transition from classroom to consultant in 2002 with a handful of long-term clients, pre-K-12, on multi-year projects to support learning as defined by school and community goals. She continues to create and has gone on to write and publish 11 more books, including Students at the Center, Personalizing Learning with Habits of Mind in 2017. Some of our elementary schools, I know, Habits of Mind was a core part of their work. Co-authored by Bennett Kallick and one due out next year with Heidi Hayes Jacobs. She continues to be the founder and curator of Learning Personalized that features inspiring contemporary learning practices. In addition, in 2022, she officially became co-director of the Institute for Habits of Mind with Art Costa and Bennett Kallick. It is my great pleasure to invite up onto the stage my friend and amazing, inspiring educator, Allison Zmuda.
Good morning. All right, that's all the audience participation for today. No, it actually is going to be a collaborative presentation. So as we start out, Allison Zmuda and friends. So the power of starting to imagine and innovate together, it not only starts with all of you in terms of the depth and exploration of how this conference was brought together, but it also starts at the very top with the directors. It starts with the opportunity to step back and say, how can we continue to make sure that our learners are future ready? But our learners are much bigger than our students. It also is a part of our faculty, our local community, and our willingness to embrace and tackle global challenges. So this presentation is actually called The Story So Far, because we are always in the spirit of an act of becoming. So as we begin to launch into this brand new school year, as we begin to step back and imagine what the story we will be telling with our colleagues and faculties, with our students on the very first day of school, the opportunity to begin to step back and think through the idea of what the world the students and staff and families are in right now, and how to make sure that we're getting them primed as well as engaged in the actual world of not just outside, but inside the world of school. So here's the theory that we're living in a VUCA world right now. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This term was coined in the 1980s by the U.S. Army War College to begin to start to think about a very different strategy or tactical approach when they're starting to engage and imagine military conflicts. But this actually became the darling of the business world in the 2000s and 2010s, of starting to think about a new way of thinking, doing, and working that very much is connected or tuned into the notion of innovation. So in the face of uncertainty, volatility, ambiguity, and complexity, what do? We started, especially because of the pandemic, but we started to make inroads into the idea that we can't wait to get things polished and perfect in our plans before we execute. We have to start thinking hard about in what way can we take a fledgling good idea and begin to prototype it right out of the gate. Begin to start to see how people are engaging and interacting, and then do those real fine-tuned adjustments, or to scrap it and start over again. But the interesting part is that from a nonprofit side, from a business side, this is generally the way of how we're starting to grow the capacity to not only handle new business products and innovations, but to tackle thorny problems like this. So again, if, by the way, you want to see a link to the presentation, I'm more than happy to do a PDF so that it can go out, so that you can start to get immersed in things like the Millennium Project, where you're starting to see the idea of these massive global challenges that not only the world is facing, but Virginia Beach is facing. So the concern and the challenge of things like energy, the idea of peace and conflict, the notion of the gap between the rich and the poor. It is a local issue as much as it is a national, a regional, and a global issue. And starting to take a hard look at the VUCA demands that are not only a part of the business world, but a part of our community life and well-being. So the notion of that trajectory, as we're starting to think and work and prepare for our students, we're also pretty keen on the kind of expectations that the workforce is demanding as well. So if you're casually taking a look at the World Economic Forum as they do their list starting at 2010, 2015, 2020, 2025, the major skills that we're after, ultimately it's grounded in this baseline assumption that the kind of demands of the workforce have changed significantly. So if you start to take a look at this graph, the notion of having kids be trained to do routine tasks is actually falling out of favor. In fact, when you're starting to look at this, This is only going up to 2009. But the interesting dynamic is that we're trying to train workers and citizens to be able to handle non-routine problems. Problems that don't have an immediate right answer. Problems that require a level of complexity, analysis, troubleshooting. Problems that require a team-based approach. So this is also one of the reasons why I am so privileged and honored to do this presentation as a team-based endeavor. Because it's not just it takes a village. It takes a village to start to think about the ideas and make them come alive. Because out of all of the things that I could present to you on, and I've done innovation keynotes many times before, focusing on the idea of the power of AI, the power of STEM, the power of creative arts. There are so many things that I could have presented on, but this one is special because this is something that I have lived through in real time. So I have now just officially graduated daughter from Princess Anne High School. And she started to say things to me during the pandemic like, Mom, I only give myself credit for 1 year of high school out of the first 3 years because the pandemic actually turned everything upside down. When you're starting to think hard about what is a meaningful, innovative challenge that we can deal with in real time, we are now turning it on its head so that we can look at it inwards. Because if we're starting to think hard about these major dilemmas that are not only facing our students and families, but ultimately are also impacting the joy, the energy, and the willingness of our faculty, we have to start thinking about how can we innovate that? How can we begin to imagine something that will re-energize and invigorate a faculty and a staff and families so that we can begin to imagine and tell a very different story about the power of learning.
Learning that prepares you for the workforce, but learning that can actually deal with some of these major challenges. So that's the story that we decided to talk about today. Because if we're starting to combat learning loss not just on test results, but learning loss in terms of the level of engagement, interest, fascination, wonderment, you start to see students be more accustomed to interacting using screens and doing assignments rather than engaging in deep inquiry. That deep inquiry can still very much happen on a screen, but there is a level of passivity that we started to see, not just in Virginia Beach, but all across the country. How do we continue to engage students in meaningful problems, challenges, and ideas when they're reluctant to actually have a conversation with one another, online or offline? How do we get teachers excited about embracing problems, challenges, and ideas with students when they start to hear crickets when they start to ask an interesting question? When they start to think about a problem or a task that is worthy of their participation and engagement. And the opportunity of starting to take a hard look at polarized rhetoric. How do we begin to tell a story that invites the community into the conversation? And trying to think hard about the way that we are using our families as partners in the learning. We're using our community members as partners in the experience as we continue to imagine a new way of curriculum design. So ultimately, as we step back, trying to re-clarify who actually owns the learning. This was sort of a spark from Alan November many moons ago as his book title. But as you're starting to think about this hard reality of who owns the learning, of trying to make sure that there's some kind of dynamic play that's happening in the classroom, day in and day out, where students can actually see what I'm doing matters. It's getting me ready to engage in this problem or challenge. It actually is getting me ready to embrace the world outside the doors, not for one day, but for right now. So, when we're starting to think about that, this is something that I've been engaged with. This is my pandemic, instead some people did sourdough baking, that kind of thing. I actually started writing a book with Heidi. And one of the things that we started writing about is the challenge of curriculum design. When the pandemic started, when the doors closed, I believe it was March 13th, 2020, I was actually seeing my daughter's musical performance opening night. And in the middle of that performance, we got the dreaded text that schools are going to be closed tomorrow for 2 weeks. And those 2 weeks turned into the rest of the year. And so in that moment, where teachers had to figure out, what am I going to do on Monday? We started to see a lot of assignments and worksheets pop up to get students busy and doing something. But that also created this massive amount of challenge. You were collecting and accumulating lots and lots of stuff, but you have no necessarily view of what's the point of it all. And so this is not only a problem that started in the pandemic, this is a pre-pandemic problem. If you start to look at the massive files, whether you print those out or you're actually starting to see the amount of materials that you're scrolling through to make sense of a second grade math class, in addition to science and social studies and reading and writing. To me, the interesting part of trying to figure out, that clicker is the funny one. So when you're starting to think about the idea of 23. That's it. So when you're starting to think about the idea of that overstuffed curriculum, in what ways can we actually streamline that curriculum in a sense that it makes it more vibrant and alive? There's that 30,000-foot view that we started to imagine as a team of directors. So when we're starting to think about the overloaded curriculum, that is the design challenge that I want you to sort of think about and imagine with me today. And when it comes to the idea that we have so much stuff to get through, so much stuff to sift and sort, it creates a very disconnected experience, not just for the learners in a particular classroom, but as the learners continue to grow over the course of their grade level experience. So how are we continuing to make movement in that area? And so when I started to think about that, this was also part of my pandemic experience. I did the whole Marie Kondo thing. Did anybody else do that? Give me some love. Thank you, Phil. So I wasn't as deep as buying that folder for your t-shirts. I was close. I almost got it. But when you start to think about the idea of this kind of design, you hold up an object or an article of clothing and ask the question, does this spark joy? And if it sparks joy, you keep it and you fold it up nicely and put it back into your closet. And if it doesn't spark joy, you say, thank you for the experience, thank you for what you brought, and then you dump it. Okay? Now, the interesting part is I started to think about this story, I immediately thought about all of the powerful library media specialists that I've been working with over the past 20 years. Can I get some love for the library media folks? Because as I started to think back on this, I'm like, oh, that's exactly what library media specialists do all the time. They read their collections, right? And the interesting part is that the notion of weeding is a skill, it's a discipline. But trying to think hard about what no longer serves us well. What can we say, thank you for your service, and put it aside? The opportunity to think about this as the beautiful way of beginning to think about the idea of streamlining curriculum. Not rewriting curriculum, not transforming curriculum. The transformation happens because we are trying to be much more clear on what the purpose is. What's the 30,000-foot view? And how can we use that to tell a much more clear, compelling story to our families and our students. So, I'd like to invite Dr. Rogers, the first of my friends, to join the conversation, and thinking about this opportunity is not something that is brand new to Virginia Beach. This has been a consistent message for the past couple of years. Dr. Rogers?
Good morning. My last name is Rogers. Work with me. Fred is my friend. Absolutely. So I know you all could have been a whole lot of different places on this Wednesday morning, but you chose innovation and to learn more about what we're doing in Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I'm Kip Rogers, the Chief Academic Officer, for those of you who have not had the opportunity to meet. So just as Allison shared, this work around innovation is nothing new to Virginia Beach City Public Schools. The graphic in front of you should be very familiar to you, yes? Profile, absolutely, should be very familiar to you, as should our teaching and learning framework. So when we get discussions about, what did we learn from the pandemic? As a principal, I always learn, you don't waste a crisis. You always learn something from a crisis. So for the better part of 2 years, the Department of Teaching and Learning, and dare I say the entire school division, we had lots of conversations about things that we were doing, things that we learned, things that we will never do again, and things that we need to do differently moving forward. And one of the conversations that we had repeatedly relative to the teaching and learning framework is how do we respond to our students to make sure that we're closing the learning loss, or dare I say learning gaps, to address some of the trauma that they experience, not only teachers, but students, but teachers as well. To address some of those things that Allison shared on a few slides ago. How do we address that? And even better, how do we address reigniting passion in teachers and helping them to get where we'd like students to be relative to our graduate profile, the bigger picture? How do we help respond to teacher needs? And that's the way in which we approached it. So what is this idea that we're talking about innovation? What's this idea that we're talking about reinvigorating or reigniting teacher passion, and how do we do that in ways in which we can control? Especially in the Department of Teaching and Learning, we have 3 ways in which we can control that: natural curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And just as Allison mentioned, we are absolutely not rewriting curriculum. What we are doing is rethinking about the way we partner with those who implement the curriculum and receive it. That's teachers, that's students, and our community as well. So how do we go about doing that? Well, one of the first things we did was the team, and I have to give total credit to the team, is thinking about what's our vision? What do we want students to know, be able to do once they leave us? Allison talked about her daughter graduating. So if I have a conversation with kids when they walk across the stage at graduation, and as soon as they come across the stage, and I ask them, what did you learn in math through your entire experience K-12 or pre-K-12 in Virginia Beach City Public Schools? The hope, and hope is a strategy, the hope is that that student should be able to tell me explicitly what they know and are able to do based on what we taught them and transfer those. So the aspirational curriculum that we like to be able to create or to reinvigorate experiences for our teachers and students and parents to be able to engage with is on the slide behind me. So I'd like you to take about 30 seconds to digest what's on the screen. So if you notice, it says clarifying learning outcomes, what students are able to do once they leave us, whether they decide to go into military, job force, or gap year, or into higher education. It builds compelling questions models a variety of student demonstrations, and notice we did not say assessments, student demonstration, and highlighting quality instructional practices, which is one of the reasons why you're here today, that are rigorous, that are relevant, and that are applicable to real-world situations. That's the transfer goal piece that you'll hear more about today. The second piece is having a clear understanding about why we're doing this work. Now, the pandemic did spawn some additional conversation, and this is nothing new in terms of innovation for Virginia Beach City Public Schools. And, again, we have an opportunity to capitalize on the crisis. So what's our why? The aspirational curriculum design ensures the opportunity, access and opportunity for all, which is an extension of UED, understanding by design, is working backwards, and most of us that are not new to education should be very familiar with that. Well, the extension of UBD is UDL, Universal Design of Learning, which focuses on ensuring that we provide access and opportunity for all of our students, the inclusivity, the equity piece that's embedded all throughout our Campus of 2025. And as we talk about our vision, and as we talk about our why, we had goals 1, 2, and 3 from Campus of 2025 in mind as we had all of these conversations. So when you look at that piece and providing the opportunity for all of our students to customize innovative learning that results in significantly and substantially better learning outcomes. That's the assessment piece. It's more than just an assessment through the lens of the graduate profile. The graduate profile is our end-all, be-all. We want all students to know and be able to do all 8 of those pie slices is what I refer to. And my favorite is the orange slice, which talks about grit. Sometimes that's hard to teach students grit. But I want you to really pay close attention to the blue line. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to digest that. So as we look at that, you say, well, Dr. Rogers, what does that mean? What it means is we want to partner with all of our stakeholders in Virginia Beach City Public Schools so that they have a close relationship with the tools that they need to be successful once they leave us. And that absolutely starts with the curriculum. And we've got to partner with those who implement the curriculum. We can stand in our great offices at Central opportunities for our students. So I'm excited that the team has created this framework from which we're going to work and partner with you. And one of the first steps in partnering is you all being this conference. So I'm incredibly excited about the work that we're going to be doing, and Allison is going to share some specific examples that reinforce the transfer goal idea as well as our aspirational curriculum. So, Allison.
Beginning again. Really starting at the beginning again, so if we can actually get the slide going. All right, so yeah, the story so far, 216. No, for real, 216. I really do want 16. I know, that's all good. So let's review the story so far. I want you to begin to tell the story right now. So, as I'm moving through the slides super quick, so I'm about 2 or 3 seconds on a slide, you're going to turn it off. The story so far. What's the story that we're trying to tell you so far? Luca? Lots of problems. Really need different kind of workforce. Because we're not only dealing with the workforce demands, we're dealing with our very clear school demands. And we're worried about this and this So we have a big problem. Quarantine,
You touch an item.
this is a big deal. This is a big deal too. This is our why. Go. Tell the story to one another. Just mutter for 60 seconds. You've been digesting. What are you taking away so far? is immediately gravitating to the image. I also know that other people don't read it that way. They read from top to bottom. There are some people that go into the focus of the story and look up. But you can start to see that all of these pieces are beautifully connected. They're connected by design. It was a labor of love designing this grade 5 storyline. It wasn't like Nancy could do this in 30 minutes. It was something that took multiple hours. But she started to see the immense power of it. And then she started sharing it with her classroom teachers in the spring and said, what do you think about this? And the idea of what the teachers were saying to her is it not only helps us from a student point of view, but it also helps us because now we're starting to see the story that we're trying to tell. Instead of getting lost in one assignment at a time, one lab at a time. But I also want to let you in on a secret. If you are an ITS, if you are in that space of working from a library point of view, you can start to see that there are significant inroads in this for you as well. The opportunity to start seeing this as a cross-departmental push is also part of the story that we're trying to tell you as well. Because it's not just something that Dr. Rogers and the team of directors are leading the charge, but also this is a significant part of Dr. Shoebridge and her work and imagination and space for me to present this to you today. And the opportunity to start thinking about the work that's happening with Dr. Lisa Bannicky and the idea of innovation and opportunity. The opportunity to start thinking about how Robin Hoffman is bringing this into play in some of the future-ready work that she's continuing to do. It's a multi-divisional approach. Comparison and analysis, those are the kinds of experiences that not only are we making sure that students are engaging in it with us, but it's a very different planning experience. So we're not coming up with the plans of what the teacher is doing. We're actually explaining what the students will be engaging in. And finally, when we do that, there is a level of voice and self-discovery when students begin to share their thinking on how learning is impacting them. The opportunity for students to be partners in the storytelling, just like you had a small snippet of the experience of the story so far. So I'm going to now officially invite one of my other friends up, Chad, who's going to talk about his experience in designing the grade 4 social studies lab.
Last day, the word curriculum.
Gotta put the mic on.
Sorry about that. When I say the word curriculum, this is what so many of us think of. Lists, facts, figures, skills, understandings. This to-do list from which we work to cover the material. And while we know innumerable bodies of research point to the importance of all of us as educators understanding that curriculum, and this remains true, it's also true that you're not at the Innovative Learning Summer Summit because you're looking for a shiny new list of directions to follow. You're here to be inspired. You're looking for ways to use the curriculum to mold, stretch, distill, and create art in the form of your teaching. And we do this not so students will remember. We do this so that our students can leave our schools and classrooms and even class sessions having had the opportunity to think, to question, to engage, to act, and to connect. While these goals are specific to the subject area in which I spend most of my time, each of our teams in teaching and learning has designed skills and dispositions for our subject areas that we wish all of our students to leave Virginia Beach City Public Schools with. More importantly, these are not my transfer goals, nor are they meant to be. They are our transfer goals, because they mean nothing without the clarity, understanding, and commitment to them at all levels. They belong to each of us. They also belong to our students. Perhaps most often left out, they belong to our families, who are our allies and partners in shaping the most outstanding future possible. To do that, we do not need another list or to overhaul our curricular resources, as been mentioned. We need to change the narrative, both literally and figuratively, of learning in our classrooms. When we all share a common understanding of what the curriculum holds, through tools like this one, where students, their teachers, and their families can all actively assess, monitor their progress, and consider how learning helps our students learn about themselves as well as the world around them, we are all in a better place. More importantly, and perhaps most candidly, this is not a small, nor is it an overnight change. But it is a change when innovative teachers like you take an idea and help it to generate the momentum that it requires.
And by the way, this is Chad's map, who, again, was one of the pioneers in drafting this, but also refining and fine-tuning this to make sure that it was ready for you all as part of the presentation, but also starting to think about the power of honing it. So you can ask Chad about it later about what it felt like to move through this experience. But I think at the same time, trying to imagine and step back and be inspired by the fabulous Ron Berger. The notion is that we're thinking about this as beautiful work, even in its simplicity of the idea that it can appear on one screen, no scrolling, no multi-page packet, to gain that clarity of that 30,000-foot view, to begin to invite the students and their families into the conversation, to make them part of the story. It starts to change the narrative not only because you're giving me goal clarity, but you're also clarifying for me, what am I on the hook for from a student's point of view? What kinds of projects, problems, challenges am I going to be experiencing as part of my learning journey so far? So when it comes to designing beautiful work, this notion of works of substance, we're trying to make sure that as we are thinking hard about what Dr. Roger said around not just a curriculum shift, but an assessment shift, and making sure that what happens in our classrooms, in our unit level, where kids are having the opportunity to also do beautiful work that they deeply care about, that is worthy of iteration and revision and analysis. I wanted to share another example that comes from the fabulous play in an example of health and physical education, typically a 9th grade class. And when you're starting to see the power of this visual, notice the student demonstration of learning, the opportunity to start making sure that what matters most is not just the story, but also what I'm proud of as a result of my storytelling. I can point to, as a student, works of substance, artifacts that demonstrate that I've thought through and figured this out so far. It doesn't mean that I'm an expert or a master, but I'm on the way to expertise. I'm on the way to mastery. not an inundated list of things that are certainly not teacher-friendly, if not student-friendly. So when we're starting to think about the idea of this new plant, we're trying to even have this cage to make sure it's having an opportunity to begin to plant and grow and germinate. I want to turn it over to Megan Rafferty and start to think about how we are engaging in fresh thinking through the lens of cultivating these new ideas and partnerships. Thank you.
Pleasure of spending almost all of my professional time telling stories. So I'm just going to tell you a story today about a couple of innovative projects that are happening right now, hopefully as a way for you to kind of think as you leave this room today and you walk out into this conference about what you want to do next. So this story kind of focuses on the concept of ikigai, which is a Japanese concept that I'm just obsessed with. I think it's a really cool way of thinking about when you think of all those documents that we've seen and all those standards and every profile of graduate, what ultimately do we want kids to leave school with? What do we want our sons and our daughters and our grandchildren and our nieces and our nephews and our neighbors and the kids we really love? Do we care so much that they know every standard, or are we hoping that they maybe have a life where the things they're good at and the things they love and the things the world needs and the things that they can be paid for are in alignment? So when we talk about innovation, we're talking about creating experiences where people live this kind of life. Not just the students, but also our teachers get to have this kind of life. So I want to tell you about a couple people who live ikigai every day and also help students to get there. So this is a story about some community partners. If you know me, you know that's one of my favorite things to do with students is to say, here's the world outside of school, why it matters. So this story starts with a community partner who happens to be a teacher, also a chef, who is opening a restaurant. And instead of opening an ordinary restaurant, has decided to open a student-run restaurant. The students will decide the name of the restaurant, the menu of the restaurant, the food that's served. They're going to literally construct the restaurant. And we're going to take about 6 to 10 students who get to actually do that as part of their school day, their work-based learning experience, their internships. By the way, we're still recruiting students for this, so if you know some and you want to ask me about it, please do. This community partner happens to collide with another community partner who is a photographer, a graphic designer, teaches courses at Norfolk State and at TCC, but has started to notice that students in her classes, when they graduate from college, don't have ikigai figured out. They might be taking pictures at Walmart. It's not feeding their passion. They might be working at a restaurant because they need the money, but it's not helping them to use their gift to be paid. So she's really interested in creating a program where students can actually learn to live their ikigai through photography and graphic design. And she's going to be working on a student-run newspaper that actually has a magazine associated with it where students can fully participate in telling the story of their community. She's going to be based in that restaurant. So there's these two community partners out there. They have this interest in kids. How do they get involved with schools? Well, they happen to run into the GRT at one of our high schools, who's been doing this public art project that you maybe have heard about over time that was from a VBCPS grant where the kids were doing public art all around the city. They were finding places where they could add their stamp on the community. Not for a class, not for credit or grades, but because they wanted to make a difference in their community. And that project took them to an elementary school where they designed some artwork for that elementary school and showed the students what was going on. Well, both of those people are going to be involved in this student-run restaurant and this magazine, finding all the ways to connect to curriculum, to connect to what they're teaching in the classroom, so that students can find their ikigai, but all 4 of those people involved in that project, the elementary principal, the GRT, and the 2 community partners, are also living this every single day. So I love to tell big, huge stories like that about innovation, but there's also stories of teachers who decided to transform their entire classroom into an interdisciplinary full-year elementary experience where the story wasn't about science, social studies, language arts, or math. It was about a project that we're learning right now. There's innovative stories about teachers at multiple high schools who decided to is it makes them feel closer to this idea of the thing they're paid for is the thing they love and the thing they're good at and the thing that the world needs. And the students see that every single day from elementary school all the way up until high school. So one of the things we want to leave you with today is an invitation, you may have seen these before, but they're coming back out again, to innovate. For each of you here, both for this conference and beyond it, to start thinking about what's your ikigai as an educator, and how might you bring this to your students. You may already have an idea, and you're just waiting to execute it and you need some help. Or maybe you're just saying, I want that, I have no idea how to get there. Or maybe you'll discover it today. But if you do, we hope that you become part of the story with us, and that we can stand here and talk about your projects in the future of the thing that you did that lit you up and made your students really excited. So we can go from those story maps to a true experience of innovation and learning. So these invitations are going to be available in the back of the room. Just look for the giant person in Lego costume right next to them. There's a QR code on the back of the Google form where you can help share your idea, ask for help, or just say, I want to talk to you. But also, please look for me today. Roundtables and in a breakout with Chad this afternoon. We'd love to hear your idea or even just help you find one. So thank you. So my final friend, Robin Hoffman, is going to talk about how this is connected in the work that she's leading as well as part of the curriculum story that is impacting and influencing entire divisions to aspire to that future-ready vision. Good morning. So I'm going to try to do this in about 2 minutes, but here's the thing. I am now a 30-year veteran of Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I say that because when I think about what is it I actually do, I feel like I'm a connector. So this is a perfect session where you've heard multiple ideas for how you engage your students in your classroom, how you engage teachers in lesson design in your schools. And this framework that you see behind you serves as a story of what you heard this morning. How do all those pieces connect to provide a powerful learning experience that unifies our school division, that unifies our schools? The framework that you see, and you'll learn more about this, and many of you may have been already working within it, is predominantly for high school, but it has implications for our K-8 students. More importantly, it represents the idea of when we say future ready, we've defined what those skills, those attributes, those dispositions are, but how do they actually live in our schools? Are students fully invested, fully engaged, fully aware of how they're developing in that capacity? And these are the experiences that we want to guarantee our high schoolers have leading us. A couple of things I want you to think about in this framework today as you're in your sessions that really seek to unify what you've heard. First and foremost is this powerful graduate profile. How are we intentionally integrating that profile in our classrooms so that students have greater awareness of the skills, the dispositions they're developing? That rigorous, relevant, real-world learning. How are we partnering with teaching and learning and with curriculum to ensure that our students are, as Dr. Rogers said, explicitly telling the story of what they know, understand, and do, but are also, as Megan said, motivated and engaged to connect to ideas and situations and community partnerships and organizations beyond. The piece that's important here is equity and innovation. Innovation lies in your hands, lies in the idea that you can make changes, make impact in your schools and your community, and that shifts. Equity is about that we are Virginia Beach. We do not need to leave Virginia Beach to see the most profound examples of learning in our schools. What we want to ensure is it isn't dependent upon who your teacher is, who your school is, where your school is, that we have these opportunities for all. And lastly, really thinking about this idea of curated works of substance and student ownership of learning. If students were asked to curate what was the thing I'm most proud of, what was the thing that most challenged me but I got through it, what was the thing that if I could revisit I would and why, that students can give voice to that beautiful work that emerges from curriculum as well as from innovative projects in your school. So as you move forward in your sessions today, you'll hear a little bit more about this, but definitely making those connections to the experiences we want for all of our students when they leave us. All right, the last thing I'm going to ask for you is to stand up, everybody. Well, you already know you're going to stand up and leave, so this is just like a slow start. So we're all standing up. Ready? Give yourself a round of applause and the applause for the friends that join me in the conversation today. So everyone officially is doing a standing ovation for yourself. Because I think the power of the work starts and ends with your community. And the power of continuing to inspire the thinking and the imagination and the wonderment. The sessions are awaiting your expertise, your imagination, and the power of you. So thank you. All right, just a few things before you all leave me. Please, if you can join me. Thank you, Allison, Dr. Rogers, Chad, and Megan for leading us off this morning. Reminder, this is our invitation to all of you to find ways to innovate in your classrooms. If you are working on something, you have an idea, any one of us on the stage, including myself, your instructional innovation specialist in your buildings, we are happy to partner with you. If you are struggling with how to make it connect to an objective, call me. I can make every connection for you of where something lives in language arts, math, science, or social studies, so you can show your principal it still is aligned to what we're supposed to be doing. A couple of things before you walk out. People in this blue shirt. These are the conference people. If you have a question, you get lost, or wondering about something, if you find one of them, they can help you get to wherever you need to be. Your first session starts at 9:15, and the last thing I want to say is this. The technology team put on a digital learning summer summit. And this year, as we rolled out of the pandemic, the virtual learning, concurrent instruction, yada yada, changing learning management systems, we had a conversation about really, we want to shift our focus to innovation. Right? So the last couple of years, you might have participated in the Digital Learning Summer Summit to hear about the tools. We want to move past the tools. We, as a team, learned a lot about what our students can do and what our students are asking for. We listened to what our teachers were saying. I'm really trying to do this. It doesn't have anything to do with the tool that's in front of you or the app that the students can access. It's about you, the teacher, and the relationship you have with your students. And how do we build and foster that relationship with your students? What do you know about them? What are you comfortable with? We appreciate you taking time out of your summer to join us today. We hope that you get from your session these amazing teachers and presenters today who want to share what they've been doing in their schools outside of the list, the checkbox. These are all the things we have to cover. But thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the conference. We appreciate you greatly. You are dismissed, free to go. Thank you.